Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Let's Argue, where I stroke my mustache and then I eventually look down at my phone, and when I open my eyes, I see in front of me all of your hot takes, unpopular opinions, and tough questions. And then I go and do something stupid, like respond to the best ones on the internet, creating an endless cycle where we do this every week until the end of eternity. While Vic Mensa could have used better discernment in his criticizing of XXXTentacion, he is ultimately right to want to hold his peers accountable for their history of abuse, and right for not wanting such toxic behavior to be swept under the rug. Nobody's passing makes their crime okay. No, it's true. Nobody's passing makes their crime okay. That is absolutely, positively true. However, Vic Mensa, in saying what he said and doing what he did, was very much making himself a martyr, because there was no way he was going to stand in front of the flood of fans and just be like, I don't like this. This isn't good. And not just have an ocean of hate fall on him and just get all the attention and all the... It was not going to turn anyone's mind. It was not going to change anybody's thoughts, because at this point, people are too upset about the passing of X to really look back on his legacy in a critical fashion. And you know what? That's eventually going to happen. We just have to give it time. Even artists as beloved as John Lennon and David Bowie, at this point, all their skeletons are out of the closet. People know about all the terrible things that they did, the stuff that was recorded anyway. So believe me when I say, when X is eventually written into the history books, it's not just going to say, XXXTentacion was a singer-songwriter and a rapper from Florida. He was very popular and loved by all. The end. And look, that doesn't mean that I'm telling you, the viewer, that you shouldn't have discussions about the news items that came up about XXXTentacion up until the point of his passing. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that Vic Mensa is not a dumb guy. And he knew that saying what he said in the fashion that he did, maybe he didn't intend to say it in front of X's mom, he did apologize for that, but still, saying what he said in the fashion that he said it, to me it read like a little bit of an attempt by him to get attention. Meanwhile, all of you, keep having the conversations that you're having. Have these discussions, have them respectfully, have them maturely, because these issues are important. And I agree, nobody's passing makes their behavior while they were on planet Earth okay. But I personally don't feel like Vic's intentions were all on the up and up with all this, so that's me. Especially since in the wake of all of this, he's been exposed to be a little bit of a hypocrite. Wonderful Rainbow is an oddly soothing album to listen to first thing in the morning. I'm going to have to disagree with you on that, but not to say that Wonderful Rainbow isn't a wonderfully enjoyable album. I think it's a really good Lightning Bolt album. But if you guys are not familiar with that record, or Lightning Bolt, the noise rock duo in general, I highly recommend that you listen to that record. I recommend that you listen to Hyper Magic Mountain, two of my favorite rock albums of all time, despite the fact that more often than not, when I listen to each of those albums from front to back, I get a migraine. I literally get a fucking migraine, honest to God, but I don't care. Both of those albums sound so great. I will give myself a million more migraines before I die listening to those records. Young Lean blew up at the wrong time in the infancy of cloud/internet rap. Although he is still very influential, if he blew up today, he'd be a lot bigger than he is now. No, I disagree. I think Young Lean blew up at the right time, because I think Young Lean, his style and his sound went on to influence a lot of what went on in cloud rap. And on top of it, if Young Lean blew up right now, I think that he wouldn't be the historically relevant figure that he is, and instead he would just become kind of another face in the crowd. I think it's better for him to have been a pioneer. So Shout out to being a pioneer. Also, shout out to eating your hands if they're made of bread. I'm still burning off the carbs from that. People saying it's harder to separate the art from the artist nowadays are probably the same people listening to Brand New while shitting on 6ix9ine. Yeah, maybe. I guess maybe. I mean, if you are somebody who is upset with the rap sheet of one Tekashi 6ix9ine, but when it comes to the allegations against Brand New and what their frontman essentially came forward and owned up to, and that just is like, that doesn't factor for you. It's not a concern. It's not a second thought. I think you might have rationalized the situation a little bit. Not saying they've both done the same thing. Not saying they're at the same level. But it still does take a bit of rationalizing to get angry at one, but then you'd put the other one in a little box. The new Tool album won't live up to the hype that the long wait has caused. I personally don't think this is so much of a factor for me, honestly, because there aren't a whole lot of bands out there that sound like Tool. Tool's records, in my opinion, are pretty timeless as well. So if Tool were to come out with an album that sounded very Tool-ish, it wouldn't necessarily come off dated to me. That being said, though, what I think is the biggest factor working against this album is I think the band being out of commission for so long. You know, if you don't use it, you lose it. And I think that Tool, this comeback could potentially be really awkward as the A Perfect Circle comeback. So not really too excited just based on that alone. Bjork eats children and records it for ambient background noise. I just ate a few children, honestly. I'm not vegan. I'm a cannibal. Mariah Carey is infinitely better than Whitney Houston. People only claim Whitney to be better because she is dead. Mariah Carey has the power, range, and whistle register to do everything Whitney did and more. I mean, I will give it to you that Mariah Carey does have the whistle register and she had more range than Whitney Houston. I mean, that's not just the case for Whitney Houston, but for a lot of singers out there. You could just use that baseline comparison and say that Mariah Carey is better than 90% of commercial artists out there. In fact, I mean, most modern female singers, because I don't really know many that get up into that dolphin range on record anyway. But that being said, I think historically, Whitney Houston is much more of an emotional and an expressive singer than Mariah Carey ever was. I mean, Mariah Carey can sing, but she really over the years has done best over very straightforward, sensual, lovey-dovey kind of point A, point B, to the point pop tunes and R&B tunes, whereas Whitney Houston, her best tracks are an emotional experience. I think she puts a lot of conviction into her singing, into her songs. Whereas Mariah Carey, I don't so much see that. And hey, that's fine. Mariah Carey has a lot going for her with just the range that you have cited here. But I do not think range and range alone makes a good singer. The biggest problem with a show like American Idol is that they look for people with voices that have wide appeal. Some of the greatest singers of all time, Lou Reed, Bob Dylan, etc., would not make it in a competition due to their voice being more of an acquired taste. Bob Dylan and Lou Reed were okay, I'll say they're good singers, but part of the reason people look back on them in history as good singers is because, oh, they also just happen to be good songwriters. Like, if Lou Reed tried to step onto the music scene saying, hey guys, I'm a singer, but I'm such a good singer, I will need someone to write songs for me. That would have never worked, not in a million years. Nobody is going to be lining up to write a song for Lou's weird, warbly-ass voice. Mind you, a weird, warbly-ass voice that I love. But again, as you said, acquired taste, but a great deal of his magic and his talent came down not to his singing, but his songwriting. While Lou Reed sings, and so does someone like Adele, I wouldn't necessarily call Lou Reed a vocalist in the same way that I would Adele, or even Pavarotti. You get what I'm saying here? You picking up what I'm laying down? You get it? I think it was in a Let's Argue or Q&A segment where you said you hated doing Classics Week because all you do is say things about albums that have already been said. Why don't you talk about albums you find underrated and underappreciated for Classics Week? I mean, sometimes I do, and those classics reviews typically get the least views, and it's not just merely a views thing, but people just generally seem to be less interested in them. And the more obscure you get when it comes to older albums, in my opinion, the less classic they actually are, because for a record to be old does not simply make it classic in my view, because I feel like part of a true classic album is that it has held on to relevancy and that it has had quite a bit of measurable influence over the years. So if I'm just grabbing some random old album that nobody knows about, nobody cares about, and didn't influence anything, I mean, sure, it's an old album and maybe it's good by my standards. Maybe I enjoy it. Maybe it's a record that people didn't really uncover or grow to appreciate until recently. That being said, though, to me, it doesn't really qualify as a classic because it didn't go on to do anything, change anything, influence anything. That to me kind of makes it a classic. So a classic review by nature, in my opinion, should kind of be of an album that does hold cultural weight because it's lasted the span of time and its footprint is felt. Its ripples are still kind of going out into the world of music today. Ninja Sex Party is the greatest comedy band of all time. I disagree, because you know who's the greatest comedy band of all time? Psycho Stick. It's Psycho Stick. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be it for this new episode of Let's Argue. Thank you for watching. Over here next to my head is another Let's Argue that you can watch. And have a good day. Have a wonderful day. Believe in yourselves and give yourself a hug. I'll catch you in the next one. Anthony Fantano.